Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Wisco Whiskey Review. My name's Jeff, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of arguably the best budget scotches around, Monkey Shoulder. So Monkey Shoulder is a blended Scotch whiskey. Now that means that instead of just from one distillery and being all malted barley, it's 100% malted barley, but it comes from 3 different distilleries, and then it's all married or mixed together. Now those 3 distilleries are going to be the Glenfiddich, the Balvenie, and Kinninvie. Now, those 3 are all Speyside distilleries, so they all come from the same region. Usually when whiskeys come from the same region, often they'll share a lot of the same similarities as far as the profiles go. Now that's not always the case, but in a lot of situations it is. So as I mentioned, the mash bill on this is going to be 100% malted barley, and the ABV is 43%, so that would be 86 proof. Now, Monkey Shoulder is also owned by William Grant and Sons, which is the same company that owns the Glenfiddich, so it would make sense that they have some of their own whiskey in this blend. Alright, so I'll try to keep these videos a little bit shorter going forward. So again, just to give you guys a quick rundown, we're going to look at the nose, the palate finish, and the value. And I'm going to grade each of those from a 1 to 10 grading system. These are all my opinions, based off of how I experienced this and my own tasting and nosing preferences. So your experience could be a little bit different, but if you want to kind of play along and taste this alongside with me, watching the video, that would be awesome too. All right, so let's go for the nose. All right, so the first thing kind of hitting my nose right off the bat is just this big hit of honey. There's also a little bit of caramel, some vanilla. There's some kind of floral, kind of almost like a grassy or a straw kind of meadow nose to it as well. Now there is a lot of sweetness coming off of this, so the vanilla and the caramel kind of play into that, but I'm also getting some butterscotch and some tropical fruits as well. It's almost kind of like a rum-esque kind of a nose I'm getting off of it, kind of that sugary, sweet, tropical fruits. All right, so now that we've nosed it, let's go in for a sip. Okay, so the proof isn't too high on this one, being only 43%, but the flavors are still coming through pretty good. Again, that first initial kind of hit of flavor is going to be a sweeter one. So the caramel kind of comes through, the butterscotch toffee. I'm also getting kind of a buttered popcorn flavor as well, right up front, which is kind of interesting, and I haven't really experienced that in too many whiskeys before. So I'd like to comment on the mouthfeel of this one because it does kind of have a creamier mouthfeel, and I really do appreciate that in this whiskey because sometimes, especially at lower proofs, the mouthfeel just ends up being a lot thinner because it's proofed down, meaning that there's more water in it. But this one, the flavors and the mouthfeel are all coming through pretty strong, even though it's only 43%. So kind of on the back end of the palate, there's still some of those fruits. Again, like I said, those tropical fruits and those sweet fruits, kind of some apple and pear and some tropical. Those are kind of coming in on the end there, along with just a little bit of baking spice. Not as much as you would have with like a bourbon, let's say, but there is a little bit of kind of cinnamon, some allspice, a little bit of oak on the tail end. Now with scotches, they usually use refilled oak barrels, meaning they've already been filled once before. So I believe these are ex-bourbon barrels. Now you're not going to get quite as much of that spice from the barrel or as much oak from the barrel since they've already been filled once and used to distill once. So this is just a very approachable, very sweet, but also pretty complex nose. I really like this one. I think I'm gonna go with the 7.5. I'd say it's definitely above average. It's not the best nose I've ever nosed in whiskey, but it's up there. All right, and for the palate, let's try it one more time. Yeah, so this threads that needle of being approachable and easy to drink, but also complex enough that, if you're an experienced whiskey drinker, I think it'll give you enough to appreciate it and kind of keep coming back for more, and kind of, play it out a little bit. It's not just a, one trick pony or a one note one taste whiskey. This definitely has some different things going on with it. So I think for the palate, I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Let's go on to the finish here. So when I talk about the finish, that's gonna be the things that kind of linger after you've already sipped it. Kind of the things that stick with you, whether it's a short, medium, or long finish, kind of depends on how long those flavors last as well. Now with this one, it's kind of interesting because the baking spices and a little bit of that oak are kind of the things that I'm picking out on the tail end. And the beginning and the middle is kind of that sweeter, caramel, butterscotch, that buttered popcorn a little bit. But then it kind of gives way to more of the kind of dried fruit, baking spice, kind of oak flavors that are lingering. And you don't really get that in the beginning or the middle. It's kind of just at the very end there. So it is a nice transition. I would say this is about a medium finish, if I had to say. The proof isn't very strong, but the flavors do stick with you for quite a while. I'm gonna give this finish a 6. It's definitely better than average, but I don't think it's exceptional by any means. So now we're gonna talk about the value. Now, even though this isn't a single malt whiskey, meaning coming from one distillery, it is blended from 3 different single malt whiskeys. And I think the value or the quality is still there. Again, even though it's just, it doesn't have one distillery's name on it, being blended, I don't think you lose any of the flavor or any of the value going into this. So this is about $35. Again, this is kind of in the Midwest. The pricing, it may be a little bit more or a little bit less depending on where you live. I believe it is pretty widely available. Again, being owned by William Grant & Sons, I believe their distribution is probably pretty good. So this is very widely available. It's about 35 bucks. I just think for being a sippable, kind of approachable Scotch whiskey, I think this is just tremendous value. So I'm gonna give this an 8.5 for the value because if you're looking for kind of a beginner Scotch, this is one that you could introduce people to Scotch with, and I think they would generally really like this one. It's not peaty by any means either. These are all Speyside distilleries, so you kind of get that honey, the floral, the sweet, and those are usually things that people like to start with when they're trying whiskeys. All right, so that brings us to the total. That's gonna be 28.5 out of 40. Now, I think that's a pretty high score for something that only costs 35 bucks and is widely available. Again, the value does kind of come into that score, but again, if you're looking for something to get started with Scotches or to introduce someone to Scotch or just to have something on your bar to go to for a blended Scotch, it's not gonna be overly challenging, but still give you enough to kind of keep coming back to and enough to challenge your palate. This is a fantastic glass here. So thanks guys for watching. If you liked the video, please hit like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a good day. Cheers.